All right, testing, testing. Today on Quality Time with Family Ties, we learn that we want to be put down just like old Shep. Go ahead, Corey.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Quality Time with Family Ties. I am one of your hosts, Corey Pepper. Along with me, as always, is Paul Packler. How are you tonight, Paul?
I'm great, Corey. It was a long day, and I'm excited to get back into the swing of things and talk about some family ties.
Yeah, you weren't here at the last show. We did the first part of this two-part episode, or this two-part assault, as I'll refer to it as.
Well, if it was as action-packed as the second half, then I really missed out on a good time.
It is terrible. It is just as talky and as sugar-coated, treacly as they possibly can make it. God, it's awful. When I start complaining about Michael Gross's acting, and because he's really quite a good actor, when I start complaining about it, it's like, wow, they just made Michael Gross look like an idiot with those lines.
Now, matching, because I didn't watch the last episode, it's the first episode of Family Ties I haven't watched in this run of the podcast. I just couldn't bring myself to it. I was just in a really bad place.
Well, you're certainly forgiven.
How does this match up? Is this one better or worse than part one?
Same. It's the same. They both get very, very preachy, and there's a basic overriding problem to me of the two episodes. And the overriding problem was that this is almost told, well, it is. It's told from the emotional standpoint of the brother of somebody who's getting divorced. How does it affect him? And instead, it almost consistently negates Rob, Stephen's brother's point of view. It almost only says, hey, you know what? I'm sorry you're unhappy. You should stay married because it makes Stephen happy.
And that's part one, or is that because that wasn't much of part two?
Well, the whole part two is at the end of part two. It's Stephen. It's sad Stephen that we focus on, not sad Rob. Rob is happy and ready to move on with his life. It just
he's out the door.
Right. It's the emotional impact on Stephen when he loses his sister-in-law.
No.
Who cares?
So, in case you're playing along, this is what is this? Season 5, episode 14, Oh Brother, part 2.
And so we really start right at the end, at the exact moment of we froze on part one with Maureen coming in. And clearly what we're going to get here is we're going to see that there are two sides to every story, that we're going to find out that Maureen has a totally different point of view than what we found out in part one. Because in part one, Rob presented their separation as, I've been very unhappy for a very long time, and I finally had to leave. And now Maureen sort of kind of comes in and says, well, yeah, you sort of left, but you left 2 months ago. You walked out. You said, and this is, I think, a really important quote. She says, he walked out without saying a word.
Right.
Her words. She says he walked out without saying a word 2 months ago, and he's been traveling all over, staying places, leaving things, and that's how she's been tracking him down until he finally stopped leaving things places and found him at Stephen and Elise's in Ohio.
It's the weirdest thing. Like, it's a very sitcom-y construction. It's not very realistic. She says that 2 months ago, she found out he was staying with a friend, Rogers, in New York City. 1 month ago, he was staying in Yellowstone National Park. And then 3 weeks ago, she didn't know where he was because he didn't leave anything anywhere. And it's like this Neil Simon monologue that ultimately, it's just very odd.
It's really odd. And the scene sort of ends with a whole bunch with a sort of a joke, a repetitious joke of everyone saying Aunt Maureen and greeting her. Alex greets her, Mallory greets her, Jennifer greets her, and then finally the girlfriend, who I forget what her name is, Sally?
Oh, I didn't even catch it.
Yeah, it's Sally we greets her. So everybody calls her Aunt Maureen, and we black out. Now, when we open the next scene, We're in Stephen and Elise's bedroom, and Maureen is telling her tale of woe to Elise. And this is where the whole episode, to me, falls apart once again, because I felt the whole first episode fell apart for a very similar reason. She tells the story to Elise, and she says that Rob came to her one day and said, we should split up. Now, if somebody comes to their wife and says, we should split up, how is that not saying a word?
Based on what she said 5 minutes previous.
Exactly. He walked out without saying a word. Honey, I think we should split up. To me, if you don't have a follow-up question to that and the conversation ends at that point, then you deserve to have him walk out without following up with any more information. Because I would certainly say, what the fuck are you talking about? We should split up, and have a really good conversation at that point.
Right, exactly. And, it reminds me, just because I didn't catch it on the watch just now, but like everything that you're saying is, excuse me, just like when we watched the Vacation summer movie where it was written by 4 different people, and so stuff didn't match up from half hour to half hour.
Right.
It's the same sort of bad writing where it's like, you just said in the previous scene that they didn't say a word, and now you're talking about they had a blow-up fight.
Mm-hmm. So I am at this point totally, once again, as I was in the first episode, sympathetic to Rob. In the first episode, I'll rehash it for you, Paul, and won't go over it too long. But in the first episode, Rob basically keeps telling Stephen, I've been unhappy in my marriage for a very long time. And Stephen's response to it was consistently in the first episode, yeah, but what about me? What about my feelings?
That's very odd.
And I didn't quite get it in the first episode. Why do you keep on talking about yourself? Your brother's saying something. Yeah, but you're walking out on your wife and children. Are you not hearing him? He's very unhappy. No, by the way, in neither episode, they have a 14-year-old child and an 11-year-old child. In neither episode did anybody approach what the hell was going to happen with custody to children. You'd think that would be a major thing if you're splitting up, but nope, don't even touch it.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a non-issue in this episode that me not having watched the previous episode, I didn't know that they had children.
Exactly. You did not mention it in this episode once, that they have two under high school age children.
And they live in Buffalo.
Right.
And so, yeah, where did she leave these kids?
Never explained that either. So, she's in.
You know what? Oh, but what's interesting in this scene, though, Corey, is it's like 1986 in real life at this point. I think something like that.
We're January of '86, right?
We're a couple of years away. 89. I looked this up. Is when Meredith Baxter and David Burney finally got divorced, and he was a piece of shit, and she was having a lot of depression, and she was drinking a lot and stuff like that during this time. And throughout the scene is poorly written. There's nothing really going on, but they're talking about the divorce and how unhappy Maureen is, and Meredith Baxter is just crying. And it's not in her lines to necessarily cry, but Elise just keeps wiping her eyes talking about it. And I'm like, oh my God, she's like really depressed and affected by her real life situation impinging or inflecting itself upon her performance. And I thought that was really interesting.
It is really interesting.
Yeah.
Aunt Maureen says at one point that dancing enrages her. The fact that Rob keeps on going out dancing, that enrages her for some reason. And then
his pants are up so high.
Oh, it's just such a ridiculous outfit. We covered that last week.
Oh.
His fashion. The girlfriend comes in, Sally, and she calls her Aunt Maureen, and in one of the few like good comedic moments, she needs her to move her car. She's backed in on the driveway, so that's why she's.
I mean, wouldn't you have Rob take care of that for you? If it's like, oh, your wife is here? Well, you know what? Go take care of this for me. Get her keys.
Exactly. It just, that made no sense. It was just for a joke. So we go to the third scene of the first act. We're in the kitchen. It's Mallory and Jennifer, and everybody's bitching about the soap opera that's taking place in their house between Aunt Maureen, Uncle Rob, girlfriend Sally, mom, dad. Everybody's in there. And who explains marriage?
But wait, Corey, you know who else makes an appearance in this episode? The Keaton family computer.
That's right. They're all sharing the same computer.
It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It looks like a small typewriter that has no paper in it, and there's like a screen on where the paper would go, and this is a computer. I've never seen a computer like this before.
Well, I don't remember it at all.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and look at it, or I'm sure we'll see it again.
You have to go look at it, Corey.
So Stephen and Rob end up in the kitchen together, and Stephen sort of gives it to Rob, sort of reads him the riot act once again. How can you do this? You're doing a terrible thing. And Rob explains the story of meeting. What was it? Oh, that he went to a meeting. And
yes, he's an accountant.
Right. As an accountant, he went to a meeting with a client, and he realized that he was defining himself as an accountant. And the realization of that led to the really sensitive line reading of, I'm an accountant, Stevie. How pathetic is that? I'm an accountant, Stevie.
I mean, I think they stole that from an Arthur Miller play. It's so good.
It was like from The Price or something like that, some self-realization that I've wasted my whole life. Now, it is followed up by one of the other few funny lines when Stephen says, he goes, I'm worried. And Stephen says, I'm worried too. You're my accountant. I thought that was
really good.
I thought that was a good line. But once again, it irritated me on another level because it always comes back to it being about Stephen. It's never about anyone else. He doesn't really radiate empathy. He radiates something else.
Yeah. Do you think it's like a square peg into a round hole of, if you're going to keep making each episode about your guest star, then the problem is that you have to explain who they are, and it's usually who they are in relation to the main family. And so you're constantly making it about how this guest star, their story has to impact our main characters, but it always feels very weird.
It does. It feels oddly selfish.
Yeah.
And then Rob looks at Stephen and says that he can't go back to his old life. It would kill him. And we end on an incredibly hopeless, pathetic kind of note.
And you know what he talks about? The batting cages.
This is the first mention of the ridiculous batting cages.
Have you ever gone into a batting cage?
I have, sure.
You play baseball and stuff, right?
Sure, a little bit with both the kids.
They're terrifying.
Oh, I'm always scared I'm going to get beamed because there's not a human there. I think that ball is too fast for me.
Yeah. Is that the commercial break?
It is. We're at the end of the first act.
Good gravy. All right, so on that note, we'll be right back. And we're back. We start off with Alex is teaching Andy, a 3-year-old, how to make French toast. And here's the thing, Corey. I feel like I remember this scene from when I was a kid watching it, because I feel like the fact that he mentions that French toast has egg in it and like how gross egg is, I think it probably made me not eat French toast for a couple years. Like when I was a kid, I was like, what? There's egg in there? That's gross. And then I didn't eat French toast.
I find that so funny. I find it funny. Well, I'm not going to go off on Andy this week. I'm gonna go easy on Andy. I think everyone knows how much I hate him. He ruins every episode. He ruins every moment. He has zero understanding of what he's saying, why he's saying it. Everything has been explained to him. He does everything by rote. And I refuse to spend another minute of my life going off on Andrew Keaton. It's not worth it anymore. I know I can't keep saying I'm not going to do it. I'm not doing it. I won't go off on Andrew Keaton. I won't do it anymore. Brian Bonsall is a good.
Have you ever seen, Corey? I have a question for you. Have you ever seen a child with such lifeless eyes? He's like the shark in Jaws. He has like a doll's eyes.
I'm telling you, I don't look. I teach 5-year-old children acting. I'm not proud of this. No, I am. I do. It's a great job. I love it. It's wonderful, and we've made quite a few of them a lot of money as making them good actors. But I will say that I can almost instantly see whether a 5-year-old has any potential instincts for being a good actor or not. And the ones who don't, I'm probably not going to turn into a good actor. And I'm not sure if anybody could turn them into a good actor.
So, with your expertise, Brian Bonsall, does he have it?
The worst child actor I've ever seen in my whole life. And I've had some bad child actors in my classes. I'm telling you, this kid has zero talent because he has zero understanding. You know, most actors, I know this is a crazy thing I'm going to say, most actors are actually quite smart. Good actors are usually smart.
That's very true.
It's just one of those things. If you're a good actor, you have to prove to me that you're a moron first before I'll believe that you're a moron. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that you're smart if you're a good actor.
Like Scott. Scott is a great actor, but then he's a moron, and they broke the mold.
He breaks every rule. Every rule he breaks.
A brilliant actor.
Like Sir John,
the least brilliant man.
Absolutely. But in real life, I think we can all agree. A fucking moron.
See what happens, Scott, when you don't show up?
Unavailable, huh? I got to work tonight, guys. I'm really sorry. It's just can't make it. Yeah, great, Scott. Terrific. Make me watch this fucking part 2 of The Old Brother. Thanks a lot.
Corey, when you just mentioned, or when you called him a fucking moron, you sounded like Don Rickles. As a present, I got Nicky his old '68 stand-up special that he did at like the Sands.
Oh yeah.
Holy shit, it's so fucking racist. We put it on like the TV, like listen to the album, and we put it on, and we're like, we kind of have to turn this down a little bit. Like
you're hearing him going, we talk like this to the.
No. And that was like the least worst thing.
Oh, sweet God. Early John Rickles, hilarious.
Whew. Oh, man.
So here we are with Alex and Andy, and I'm just going to skip over it because it's just the worst. And then we end up with a scene between Rob and Maureen, where once again we come down to the crux of the story, which is Rob is unhappy in his long marriage that he has had with Maureen, and she claims that he's never communicated it. And I think in the scene, he communicates it quite well. Just like I feel like he's communicated it well to Steven. I think he's communicated it well to Elise. I think he's communicated it well to Alex and the girls. I think even Andy is aware of this. He's unhappy in his marriage. Are we really going to sit here and say somebody should stay in a marriage that they're unhappy in?
No, but you know what? I because I didn't watch the first half. What's crazy to me is that like in this scene, she's going over the bills that they have to take care of, that all of the people that were doing their taxes that he just forsook and went off to Yellowstone, like she did their taxes for him and stuff, which I don't think is legal, but
it's not, I'm sure.
But like you would think at this point, because it seems so muddy to me, and I don't know if listeners are able to figure out, like, it seems like they didn't have any real conversation, or like she didn't see this coming, but the two of them never seem to have a real heart-to-heart of like, I want this, I was unhappy here. Like, I don't even know what Maureen feels about any of this.
It was all so vague. Everything was so vague. All we got was he was unhappy. We got nothing in return. Unhappy with what? Is your wife cold? Are you having sex? Are you sleeping together? Are you friends? Do you do things together? I mean, these are the things, relationships have been going on for a long time.
Yeah. And it's just crazy because they're sitting across from each other and she could say anything at this point, and yet they have her say nothing.
Nothing. Absolutely. It's a completely vague scene.
Yeah.
That's why I wrote down, the only thing I could wrote down is Rob is unhappy. He communicates it actually quite well to her. That's all I know.
Right.
So we go from there to the living room, and with almost one of the first things out of Steven's mouth is there anything more we could have done? And once again, I wanted to slap the shit out of Stephen Keaton. How can you do anything to make anyone else's marriage work?
And you know what's crazy is that in the last episode, I listened to you and Scott talk about it, is that it's like that, and I tweeted you, where it's like, it seems like they invented divorce in 1984 or something. Like, why is everyone so shocked that divorce is the thing that exists?
That's right. You said, what, like divorce started with Kramer versus Kramer? I mean, is that the first thing that America first found out? For God's sakes, we've had divorce prevalent in this country since the 60s.
Yeah, and it's even more shocking in retrospect with this scene that we're talking about right now, that Stephen was so shocked at Rob getting separated or pre-divorce or whatever, because then they do one of the most amazing, head-scratching jokes I've ever seen on Family Ties. He says, couples are just not staying together anymore. You remember Charlotte and Eddie? Like, all of our group of friends, they're all getting divorced. And he goes, remember Charlotte and Eddie? And Elise goes, yeah, well, she found out that she was gay. What? And then then he goes, yeah, and remember Denise and Gary or something? And she's like, yeah, Denise found out she was gay. And then he goes, well, Charlotte and Denise. And then Elise goes, well, yeah, they're still happily together. Corey, they're talking about gay people on Family Ties.
3 years before Meredith Baxter Burney becomes Meredith Baxter, leaves her husband, and announces that she's gay.
Yes. Well, I mean, she announced that she was gay like in the 2000s, but yeah.
But left her husband for a woman.
Crazy.
I just thought that was like, wow, that whole gay conversation just blew my mind.
I mean, they've never touched on anything as hip and cool as that kind of humor ever.
No. And they did, and they sort of shrugged it off as being very, very normal. I was very pleased for them in 1980.
Yeah, they really didn't go crazy about it. And you know what? The audience didn't laugh that much at it either.
They're saying there was no wink or backtracking to make the joke work, where you're sort of making it seem like you're an idiot or they're idiots or anything.
No.
Now, Stephen and Rob have this big ass scene here. I did write a little note, and I'd like to read you the note that I wrote down, because I think it could be important someday if I don't come out of this alive. And it just says, "Dear sweet God, why I want to have a seizure. Make it end."
Now, I have to ask you why? What would a seizure help? Are you just...
I don't know. I thought at that moment that a seizure would be more fun than having to watch this treacly, awful... Look, I've got stage 2 diabetes. I have stage 2, type 2 diabetes.
Do you really?
Yeah, I don't need to have any more sugar in my system from this awful scene. By the way, at one point in the scene, Rob says to Stephen, his younger brother, "Remember, we used to share a room. We used to share a bed. Can you fuck tell me?" And I didn't have a bed of my own until you left home at 18 to get married. You and your brother slept in the same bed.
Jesus Christ.
You were old in Buffalo. You didn't mention that you were destitute.
We've seen their house. They weren't that poor.
fucking grapes of wrath, according to, hey, come on, brother, let's cuddle together for warmth in bed.
They suckle on a homeless woman every night.
It was supposed, really? And they just sort of glossed right. I was like, okay, whatever. I'm at this point, I hate this fucking episode so much anyway. I just let it go by.
And you know what? This is the dumbest thing, is that Rob is older than Steven. Like, the actor is shorter than Michael Gross, and his hair is completely black, and Michael Gross's at this point is pretty gray.
I had to keep on reminding myself of that fact as the scene was going on.
I mean, but here's what I'll say. The casting is really good because they have the same physical, the way they carry themselves. The casting is great because they seem like they're related, but I don't know why they weren't just like, oh, he's Steven's younger brother.
I don't know why they didn't do it.
It makes no sense.
When in this scene, because, you know, during these final scenes in every episode lately, I have at some point tuned the whole experience out for self-preservation purposes. I feel at a certain point, I'm in a foxhole, I'm getting shot at. I've got to sort of just put like earmuffs on and no, I can't hear anymore for just a few more minutes. I just want to stop. So at some point, somebody brings up the story of Old Shep at this point, right?
Oh boy. Yeah, this is where it really grinds to a halt because like at this point we've covered all the like Maureen comes in, he and she, as she's like heading out, he's Rob is like, you know, I'm sorry. They give a very tentative hug to each other where it's like an ending. And I thought that was very nice. I thought it was like a nice, like, you know, they're both really heartbroken about this, but this is how it ends.
Mm-hmm.
So she leaves, and then all of a sudden it becomes a whole new episode about Steven and his relationship, talking about the sleeping in the same bed, and that Rob used to torture Steven by making him listen to this record, Old Shep, this country song, that was about like a boy and his dog, and then he has to shoot the dog because it's old, and it would make young Steven cry. And so Rob laughs about it, and he would bring over his friends to be like, watch my kid brother cry, and then put the record on. And then Steven is like, and then later on, you know, when I started to go to protests and stuff, and you didn't agree with me on that, but then you gave me money when I went off to Berkeley, and you gave Jennifer clothes, and it's just like, oh, what the fuck is even happening? Like, we have 3 minutes left in this episode, and now we've created this whole new dynamic.
It's awful.
It's really bad, because if they had just ended with the Maureen hug and everything, that would have been great.
Absolutely. They went, and then they had this ridiculous off-story scene, and the minute Michael J. Fox appears in the scene while Dad is searching through his vinyl collection to find the Old Shep album, the minute Michael J. Fox appears, you sort of kind of know that we're going to see both Stephen Keaton and Alex P. Keaton both crying over Old Shep. And that's exactly what we get from that point forward. Yeah.
You know what? It was nice to have Alex relegated to like secondary character in this episode. It's nice when he just comes in and makes some jokes and we don't get sick of him. I liked having him be a small part of this episode, but none of the parts that he showed up were that great.
No. Well, there were no parts that were that great, so I don't know how he could have saved it. It's just another bad episode. Now, do we have another two-parter coming up next week? Do we start a two-parter, or do we have like a week of a regular show and then back to a two-parter?
Yeah, we have a week off of just a regular show.
I look for that's like a freaking oasis in the desert, just thinking, oh, okay, it's a one-off next week. It's not like a continuing storyline like we have seen maybe 4 times this season.
Yeah, I think, honestly, Corey, I think we have 3 more hour-long two-parters.
Just horrible. Just terrible.
It's something else. They're really buckling down on trying to break us this season.
Either that or they've clearly run out of stories.
That could, yeah. The other thing I was going to say is that the song Old Shep is terrible. I listened to it before we started recording just to hear what the song was like, and it's as bad as the episode.
Hey guys, I got to teach tonight. I can't possibly do the show with you. You guys are going to have to do part 2 of the podcast all by yourselves, okay? I'm really sorry. Try to get back to you as soon as I possibly can.
Were we gonna have guest host Joaquin come in?
Yeah, I'm channeling Joaquin through Scott Jones now. I'm giving you these. Hey, guys, I can't do this episode. I'm really sorry.
We need to cut this. We need to cut this all out because no one's gonna have any idea what we're talking about right now. This is for like an audience of 3 people.
Go to it, Brian. Enjoy.
All right, so yeah, that's it for this episode. Let's get on out of here because I have to pee. I'm sure Corey.
You have to pee. My twice as old prostate is sitting here for 45 freaking minutes talking about the second half of Big Brother 2.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have like an insulin shot you have to get at this point, right?
I am not on insulin. I'm, one can have diabetes and one can have diabetes. Okay.
Is that
a pill?
Is the second diabetes the good one, or is that the bad one? Or
there's no good diabetes.
Oh, really? Okay.
No good.
One acquires later.
Yeah, it's the one. It's fat man's. It's a fat person's diabetes. It's type 2. Juvenile diabetes.
Oh, nice. Diabetes.
Right. The king. Okay. Thank you. You put a nice spin on it. The king's diabetes.
All right. Let's get out of here. Rate and review our show on iTunes. For questions and comments, email us at qualitytimewithfamilyties@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at Qtwft for updates. You can also follow each of us. I'm at Paul Packler.
I'm at Corpep, and Scott's at Follow Jones.
And you can like us on Facebook. We'd like to thank our host and producer, Barbara Dillon at Fanbase Press. Fanbase Press is a comic book publisher and an online community supporting other creators and fans through daily reviews, interviews, and podcasts that span the pop culture spectrum. www.fanbasepress.com. Also, Perry Adams, who beautifully performs Family Ties and our theme song, Without Us. Check out her website, www.perryadams.com. Also, we'd like to thank Bryant Dillon, who created our fantastic drawing and artwork, as well as edits our show. Bryant is the president and co-founder of Fanbase Press. Follow him on Twitter at Comic Book Slayer. And finally, we'd like to thank Sean Foster, Fanbase Press's graphic designer, for designing our logo. And one last thing, by the time this episode comes out, I'll be on my way winging it to the coast to celebrate friend of the show, Joaquin Nunez's wedding. So
when are you coming out here?
I'm going to be there like Friday.
Wow. And the wedding is Saturday?
Yes. It's a quick trip, so I probably won't be able to see you.
In Long Beach?
No, it's going to be in Murrieta.
Well, it's even further down south. Bring your Republican best.
Oh, I shall.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so bye, and congratulations, Joaquin.
Congratulations, Mazel Tov.